6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. I am Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually outside of the hot box is Matt Lee at @MattLee_61, Anna Forsyth at A4C03. Missing in action, still LTIR, Adam Ovenel Carter at Adam FOC, but that's okay because we filled his spot with someone special. We've got David Quadrelli here. You might know him as the managing editor over at CanucksArmy or a host of the Canucks Conversation podcast, which aspires to be as awesome as we are. I think that's the way it is, right, David?
Correct. Very correct. Yes.
No, thank you for joining us.
Wow.
What are you talking about? Everyone aspires to be longest running, not most popular. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But you can find David on Twitter at Quadrelli. Again, thank you for joining us. It's not to suggest that we had Faber join us before you in any perspective order, but I'd like to point out we forced him to go to the hot box. We're letting you record from the comfort of your home. Guaranteed, you win.
So what's the hot box?
Oh, it's a stuff of legend.
Yeah, so the long and short of it, back in the day, we used to record in the NW studio. When Matt worked there, we had access to the NW studio. Eventually, we lost access to NW studio because Matt decided he no longer wanted to work at NW and, got this other gig. So we were struggling finding a way to record that didn't have us running into all sorts of technical troubles. And lo and behold, the Vancouver Public Library main branch has podcasting studios or recording studios. So we're like, oh, great idea. And I think the first one we ever recorded was like middle of winter. Wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And then it slowly started to warm up as the seasons went along. And let's just say there is absolutely zero ventilation in these boxes that were installed after the library was built. So come summertime, you're essentially a hamster inside of a microwave.
You're in a sauna.
Gosh, that sounds a lot like that sounds like our BCIT studio. Like it's a sauna.
I know exactly which studio you're talking about. As a former BCIT student, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very warm, and you have to turn off all the fans and everything because it'll interfere with your recording. So, yeah,
I would
an
like
experience.
I would like to add, Faber was one of the guests that we had come into the public library, and I think I felt the most sorry for him because he's a pretty big dude, thick, luscious beard. He was wearing a long sleeve shirt, if I remember correctly. Oh man, he was just drenched by the end of the episode, and it wasn't because he was fired up talking about the Tyler Myers contract. Let's put it that way.
Poor kid.
Yeah, Faber's a big dude. He sweats a lot.
Well, I can speak to that being the honorary big dude here at C4. It's not a fun place to be. And then you had Faber and myself, the two Chris's, and it was madness. The latest episode of Canucks Conversation, though, I understand you got a couple people that people might recognize. Some guy that goes by this guy, Rick Dollywall. I don't know if I've heard too much about him. Our listeners might not be familiar. And some Finn named Sammy Salo?
Yeah, I think Salo used to play for the Canucks back when I was 3 years old.
I didn't even know you'd still be alive, honestly.
Oh my goodness. Man, I feel so old.
We had a lot of fun with those two.
Quaz, just for reference, I don't know if you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but you're in your early 20s, is that it?
Harmon are the same age. I'm older than Harmon, actually.
Really? So you is your boy genius number 2 or boy genius number 1? I don't know which one of you guys is which.
Number 4, probably. There's some very smart minds in this market.
Oh man,
that are our age for sure.
The journalists are getting younger and younger these days. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. The latest episode, though, Canucks Conversation, it featured Rick Dolliol, Sammy Salo. It's episode 86. You want to go check it out. But we're going to actually talk more about the Canucks here than obviously your humble podcast that still wants to be the longest running, like ours is not the most popular. But you know what? We asked our listeners to tell us if there was anything pressing they wanted to know about you. And it's interesting because we got this question here about, is it true that your mom brings you 10 p.m. lasagna every night?
Yeah, so that happened one night, and Favor won't shut up about it. What were we doing? We were either playing Warzone or playing poker with a bunch of other Vancouver media guys. And it was 10 p.m., and I went downstairs to get a glass of water, as I so tend to do. And I had my AirPods in. And they just hear my mom whisper to me. She's like, "Hey, I made lasagna." And I wasn't expecting it. So it became a 10 p.m. surprise lasagna. And it was wonderful. My mother is the best. And yeah, she tends to surprise me with meals sometimes, which is wonderful.
Man, I wish someone made me 10 p.m.
I think Favor's just jealous that that his mom's not dropping off 10 p.m.
Well,
lasagna.
hold on. He put sour cream on his lasagna one time. And exactly. And I showed my grandpa, who's an Italian immigrant, as is my mom, I should say. I showed my grandpa that, and he, I don't know, Chris hasn't met him yet. I hope my grandpa doesn't remember that Chris is the one that put the sour cream on the lasagna. So when he meets him, I won't bring that up for
That's
sure.
bad.
Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need to sub a different Chris into the podcast, I know a guy. Just saying.
All right. Good to know.
The episode, though, we're going to get into the fact that the NHL is one step closer to returning to action. We have now an idea, since the last episode we recorded, that Vancouver is no longer in the picture of being a hub city, at least for the moment, because it is a continually fluid situation. The Vancouver Canucks may have a chance to draft first overall, depending on which side of the tank you happen to go and be on, and a whole lot more. So, let's not wait any longer. Let's go directly into a rewind. I'm not sure what we want to kick off the rewind segment with. Do we want to kick off the news that
draft lottery?
I was going to say draft lottery, but if we go even further back, it is official now. Vancouver is no longer a hub city. I mean, that's the older news.
I mean, yeah, Matt and I were talking last week as it was basically a done deal, and I think at that stage it was. Vancouver was about to be announced before it hit that final snag.
Yeah. What is it the former friend of the show, Jason Botford, always used to say? Life moves fast.
Well, it does. And Elliot Friedman had actually shared in his 31 thoughts, and this is actually his last 31 thoughts for some time, was that Vancouver and Vegas had essentially been like straw polled by the players. They were the two locations. And now Vancouver's completely out of the picture. The Vancouver Canucks have simply said it's not going to happen. And word has it Vegas is no longer top of the table. They're down middle of the pack. But David, I'm a little bit curious what your thoughts are on whether or not it's important for Vancouver to be a hub city, or if it was just anything that you were, anything more than indifferent to.
Well, if you ask Francesco Aquilini, he'd tell you it was very important, but it's really not. I mean, the fans are all going to be watching this on TV. I mean, the economic benefit isn't that much for the actual province itself. So, I mean, what benefit is there for the people of the province? Bonnie Henry was talking the whole time about how she wanted to keep everybody safe, first and foremost. And I mean, that includes the NHL and its players. And I think Bonnie Henry might care more about the safety of the players than the NHL itself does. So I don't know what to say about the hub city situation. I know Vancouver is the best place for the NHL to come because of how well we've handled this virus. And I mean, I don't know, if you want to start bending rules, that's kind of why the virus is under control, because we have those rules in place. So to start bending rules, it just doesn't make much sense.
And I think the take from many of our listeners who happen to be in our C4 Discord is similar to what you just suggested there, where the bending of rules is a slippery slope. Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the NHL were to return to action, because as fans, we're simply going to be watching on television. But sort of the bigger picture, that wherever they return to action, there is obviously a variety of pros and cons. And I'm of the opinion that one of the biggest pros that BC, or specifically Vancouver, had going for it was the fact that the pandemic has been handled here better than in many of the other sort of competing jurisdictions. And we, let's be honest, the city of Vancouver didn't go and put together a video advertising Kelowna. So that's got to be a plus one.
Maybe that's why they lost out. Maybe they didn't have enough of a drive as Edmonton.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, anyhow.
It's just bizarre. We've talked before on the podcast about NHL player safety and how they could be doing more to protect their players from a disciplinary point of view, from hits, getting dangerous hits and dangerous fights out the game. And we've seen again that they're not prioritizing the safety of their players, which is a bit concerning.
Can I just sort of add, before we move on, at the end of the day, I don't think any of us are really going to care that Vancouver wasn't really picked as a hub city. I mean, for me, if the NHL proceeds with, let's say, Las Vegas, and let's say the other one is Edmonton, for example, and players get, locked down into a bubble and you see some exposure breakout in a hypothetical world where there is an exposure out there, I think what you will see, and the NHL will resume, in time, Vancouver will come out on the right side of public opinion, that people will say we should have gone to Vancouver. And as you guys know, I'm not one to hold grudges, but at least this way, Vancouver can sort of say, we told you so. So for me, I don't really care if this is the beat of the drum that the NHL wants to march to, so be it. But I think BC took a hard stance, and I actually commend them for sticking to their guns on it.
I mean, in fairness, Dr. Bonnie Henry could possibly, become the president of the Vancouver Canucks, and she would do no wrong. She's essentially got, I think, the same pop that Trevor Linden had in his early days in the, was it president of hockey operations or whatever his role was? So,
well, but just to say that I think the reason that everyone loves Bonnie Henry is that she's smart and she knows what she's talking about, but she's quick to, defer to other people on topics she doesn't know about, and I can't say the same for the NHL.
No, true enough. Let's speaking of deferring to topics I don't know much about, let's talk about the NHL draft lottery. I still can't wrap my mind around what ultimately has occurred and then what the next steps will be. I get that the draft lottery this year was different because of the pandemic, because you still have the play-in games, and we saw it's almost as if the NHL wanted to script it the way it actually came to be, where a placeholder team currently has the number one overall draft pick. Are we talking about Gary Bettman on the horn with Vince McMahon saying, hey man, how can I write a good script here, or what?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it would have just made more sense in total to just have all of the draft lottery after the play-in round had occurred. But no, the NHL wanted to make headlines and get in the news now. That's why they did it now before the play-in series. And now we have this placeholder team in the play-in series. One of them is going to get that pick. So now there's this whole other element. Fan bases are going at each other. Everybody, it's not just our fan base that's having this conversation about, oh, is it better if they lose? Is it better if they get past the play-in round? Every fan base is having this discussion, and that's by design, by the league. And I mean, we can sit here and debate whether or not that was a good idea, because now they have fans rooting against their teams, which I'm not sure is something the NHL really wants, but it's something that happened because the NHL decided to do the first draft lottery before the play-in round had already concluded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but from their perspective, sports is entertainment, and this was the most entertaining outcome. It's generated the most headlines, as you said, Quads. And from their perspective, just the interest and intrigue from, it's not just fans of the playing teams who are now going to be completely fixated on the series. There'll be people being like, oh yeah, I miss hockey, so even though my team isn't playing, I'll watch. But now it's going to be absolutely every team and every fan base is going to be obsessed with this play-in series.
So to the point that you raised there, David, about the NHL in whatever decision they wanted to make, decided to go and run this before the actual play-in takes place. The fact that it's happened prior to this, and now you have a placeholder team, it has almost introduced the possibility of impropriety. Not to suggest that there is any NHL team that has ever gone out of their way to tank, but maybe there have been teams like Buffalo who've gone out of their way to look at the future differently. I mean, I think it was almost as if the NHL, and I sort of brought the Vince McMahon comparison, kind of wanted to be the story. I mean, you consider how other, sports leagues are, like baseball as an example. Baseball was in a rough spot. the NBA was sort of up and down. And here NHL was like, oh man, maybe we can get some headlines here and really get people start talking about us. And that's all they wanted. So, I mean, could it have been that it was the entertainment value of having the draft and then the conversation that's ensued and all of these different fan bases moving forward?
Yeah, and I mean, if that was their plan, it definitely worked because now everybody's talking about it, and we're going to be hearing about it until the play-in series is over. Like, even during this play-in series, we're going to be hearing from every NHL fan base, and that includes teams who aren't in the play-in series, and that includes teams, again, who are in the playoffs and actually made the playoffs. They're going to be wondering what's going on. People are going to be watching when the NHL returns, and that's for sure.
The team playoff, team tank argument. I mean, you being obviously the managing editor of CanucksArmy, host of Canucks Conversation, probably try to toe the middle of the road there. But do you see value in both sides, or are you of the belief that, let's say, team tank is out to lunch or team playoffs completely out to lunch, or is it just too difficult to go and suggest one path is better than the other?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I don't think anybody should be picking sides, really. I'm on team whatever happens. I mean, you see the value in getting Alexis Lafreniere on this team. It's clear, right? But it's not a guaranteed thing that that's even going to happen. Again, you also see the value in not losing this year's pick. Yeah, I think I got that right. Me and Chris recorded a Patreon today, and I screwed it up when I was talking about it, so I'm going to try and get it right this time. But you see the value knowing that the Canucks very well could be a lottery team next year, right? So making the playoffs, yes, now I've got it. Making the playoffs and giving up this year's pick isn't really a bad thing if it's going to be in the 16-17 range. Again, you don't know what's going to happen next year. The team probably isn't going to be improved that much, aside from Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes taking that next step. And, there's other guys in that conversation as well. JT Miller's probably going to have a pretty identical year to the one he did this year. But when it comes to the blue line I'm looking at, there's not much the team can really do to improve it. It might even get worse, a lot of people are suggesting. So, there was no real injuries this year, Markstrom aside, of course. But if Elias Pettersson goes down or Quinn Hughes goes down, knock on wood, what's this team looking like next year? So, I mean, Harmon was talking about it on 1040. There's a very real possibility that this team's a lottery team next year. So, I mean, there's value in making the playoffs and giving up a 17th overall pick rather than potentially a lottery pick next year. And again, if the Canucks were to get in the lottery here, they could probably be picking in the 13-15 range anyway. So again, I'm looking at it and I'm saying there's value to both sides. I don't think anybody should really be taking a side. I'm of the opinion that it's really whatever happens. And I mean, listen, I'll say even if the Canucks lose their series, there's an 87.5% chance that they're not going to land Alexis Lafreniere. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think it's kind of dumb that people are fighting on Twitter.
I think. Sorry.
I say that's Canucks Twitter. I mean, if you're not fighting, there's about the only thing I've actually seen Canucks Twitter agree on. Actually, two things. One, Vancouver not being a hub city, which was kind of amazing that Canucks Twitter was actually balanced in their approach to that not happening. And then the other thing is that the Sedins are, first vote Hockey Hall of Famers. That's about the only thing Canucks Twitter agrees upon. So
don't forget Quinn Hughes wins the Calder. That's
true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. If Canucks Twitter isn't fighting it, isn't existing, but I think you're 100% right there, Quads. Just if we do end up in that, 16, 17, 18 range, there's quite a sharp drop-off after 10, 11 on this draft class. So there's great value just even beyond the playoff experience, which is such a negligible, nebulous thing. But just, we have no guarantee that we're going to do better next year. We're probably going to do worse. If we don't re-sign Markstrom, shock horror, then we're definitely going to do worse. And I have no confidence this blue line is getting any better. So, I think I'm with you there. Yeah, they're a tough watch, but I don't mean to be negative. I'm of the opinion if we make the playoffs, great, that's fun. But if we don't, maybe we get a shot at a pick. So
yeah, exactly. Another thing I wanted to add is, this pick, this 12.5% chance, it's a consolation prize. It's not a goal. You shouldn't be gunning to get that 12.5% chance. It's not It's a consolation prize. It's not something you should be striving for. Like, are we? I don't know. I just find it funny that there's people on each side of this argument, because it's like you have to see the value in both. But again, like I think, I'm not a fan anymore. But if I was, I definitely wouldn't be cheering for them to lose. That just wouldn't be me.
The take that we have sort of collectively with C4 in varying degrees is that the Vancouver Canucks priorities have maybe not been the best placed over the past few seasons. Like, we were of the opinion this team needed to do what John Tortorella said: reset, blow up the core, rebuild. We understand the reasons as to why that didn't occur, especially with the Sedins on the roster. Yep. But what we've seen is the word retool, and suddenly rebuild has occurred. And yet when we start to see maybe contracts that don't necessarily tie into the word rebuild, or the one thing I always give Benning credit for, was the fact that he had solid scouting draft acumen. So in my mind, it blew, a short circuit. Why are you giving picks away to not get, something tangible in return? But I don't think any one of us here would have been on the team tank where they need to lose for first. I mean, we all want a Stanley Cup. It's just we sort of had a different view as to the timeline the Canucks had to get there.
Yeah, like, it's tough to say. I think the only year that you could point to and say that the Canucks tanked was the 2016-17 season. And sure enough, they drafted Elias Pettersson that year. So it did work, technically. The tank did work. But really, that was their only year where they dealt assets at the deadline. And really, we're just like, okay, well, nothing's happening this year, so might as well try and get a good draft pick. And I mean, they got Goldobin out of it, and they got Jonathan Dahlen out of it. We don't have to talk about what happened to both of those players. But, I think there's an argument to be made that tanking does work, because they did it and got Elias Pettersson. But if you do it too much, it's counterproductive, I think.
The only thing I heard here, and you heard it here on C4 first, David Quadrelli said the tank worked.
I did.
But yeah, as I pointed out in our Discord, I think earlier today, like, that's tanking over several months. That's with a deadline to deal away picks. Like, how do you tank a 5-game series? Like, that seems like it would be pretty obvious.
And not only that, like, and it wasn't even like, I'm not accusing any players of showing up. Well, the players did show up and kind of say, well, this is, maybe they weren't trying as hard as they would if it was a playoff game. But what I will say is, like, I think when people talk about tanking, I don't think they mean telling the players to not perform well. I think they're more talking about just let management get rid of all the good older players and get assets for them. Those assets aren't going to help you in the here and now. So your here and now team isn't going to be good, but you're looking at the end goal. And that's to me what tanking is. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be tanking a play-in series. Again, I think, like you said, it'd be extremely obvious if players are just dogging it out there. And I mean, it might even look like that with the 2 months or so, 3 months now that they've had off. So it might even look like that. It might look like they're not trying out there, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
So, David, I want to put you in the GM Jim Benning chair for a moment, if you will, and I know that's a hot seat already as it is, but let's say we live in a world where the Vancouver Canucks, on that 12.5% chance, somehow do get the number 1 overall pick. For you, is it a slam dunk that you take Alexis Lafreniere at that spot, at a position where the Canucks don't necessarily need to bolster their winger prospect pool, or would you consider trading down from that spot, or trading for a package of players that can help you win now?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic to bring up, because I was looking at it, and when you have a chance to add a player like Lafreniere to your team, I say you take it. Like, Lafreniere is not going back to the CHL. Let's be honest here. He's coming to the NHL next year, and adding him to Elias Pettersson's wing on an ELC, again, the Canucks right now have Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes on ELCs. Those are their best players on ELCs, but they can't really take advantage of it because of the $20 million they have tied up in Tyler Myers, Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, and Brandon Sutter. And I think I'm forgetting somebody, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying here. So adding a player like Lafreniere to your team on an ELC can only be viewed as a good thing. That almost is a slam dunk. But then you look around and, okay, let's say Ottawa wants to move up or Detroit wants to move up. And then you all of a sudden have a chance to get rid of Louis Eriksson's contract. And now you're still able to take advantage of those ELCs that Pettersson and Hughes are on. All the while adding a pretty good player. Like, a guy I've looked at a lot is Jamie Drysdale. he looks fantastic. Right shot defenseman. And I would really like to see the Canucks add him. Again, like, he's going to be gone if the Canucks are selecting 15th, no question. But I wonder if they get that first pick, because Detroit really wanted Lafreniere. Everybody knows this. Mm-hmm. So does Detroit look at, okay, we have cap room. Let's take Eriksson and we'll go up for the first pick. Who knows? I mean, it's something I think you have to explore. I mean, if I was in the GM's chair, which you just put me in, I'd be taking calls on it and I'd be exploring that option. But again, adding a player like Lafreniere, I think it's basically a layup.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a good example about Ottawa, and this is a team that was so desperate to get that number 1 pick if they could, and they're still sitting there at number 3 and number 5 in a scenario where I don't know if Pierre Dorion is actually willing to do this, but if they're willing to offer 3 and 5, maybe even take some money back, let's say a Sven Baertschi type of contract. I don't think they're taking Louis Eriksson's contract on top of giving 3 and 5, but if they're willing to eat some money and move up from 3 and 5 for 1, you're potentially looking at adding someone like Jamie Drysdale at 3 and maybe one of the Swedish wingers, Lucas Raymond or Alex Holtz at 5. I mean, you're getting 2 really good players on ELCs, one of which could push for an NHL spot as early as next season, and getting rid of some dead money as well. That's something that I think you have to at least consider if you're the general manager.
Yeah, I think if that trade comes, you accept it in a heartbeat. The problem is I don't think Ottawa is going to do it, especially taking on an extra contract. I don't even think they'd get rid of 3 and 5 for the first pick. I don't think they do that. I think to make that work, the Canucks might even have to throw in their second round pick, and maybe then it works. And even then, I'm not too sure, because again, you're giving up 2 first round picks in the top 5 as well. It's such a deep draft. I think Ottawa's going to value adding 2 very, very good players to their team over getting that one player.
Yeah, I think you're right that you listen to the calls, right? Because you never know what option you're going to get. And it's not like you're giving up Lafreniere to get rid of Louis Eriksson or whatever it is. You're like investing in your future of PD and Quinn coming off the ELCs and whatever good player you can get there. So I think that's an interesting point. One question, is there any part of you that considers the Cam Robinson pick of Quinton Byfield, friend of the show, Cam Robinson?
You know what? He knows a lot better than I do, and I go to him for a lot of my prospect stuff. Anytime I have a prospect question, it's either him or JD Burke that I'm texting right away. So, I mean, I respect his opinion. I have not watched either of these players nearly as much as Cam has. So, I mean, I'm not going to come out and say Cam's wrong. I think it's a very bold take based on public opinion, but I definitely trust Cam's analysis. So, I mean, yeah, maybe if Byfield goes first, that's going to be a storyline right there, because they had Lafreniere lined up to talk to the team on Zoom or whatever, on national television, lined up to talk to the team who got the first overall pick, which is just so stupid. Nolan Patrick did it with the Devils, I believe, back in the day, and the Devils didn't even take him. So, I mean, it's funny because you look at a draft where it looks like there's a clear-cut number 1 overall, but then you get to a draft like the Heishier one, and it's not really clear who should go number 1. So, I mean, it would have been funny to see them talk to Lafreniere and then take Byfield, whoever that would be. But obviously, we don't know who that's going to be. I mean, it'd be great to have more in this storyline. I think shaking up the draft order would be awesome. I think every time that's happened, it's benefited the Canucks. It happened in 2018 with Quinn Hughes, and that was great. It was a great storyline for sure.
Quaz, before we get to the break, I wanted to ask your opinion on this. Every year, it seems like I have this debate with myself and with other people, but is it time to fix the NHL draft lottery a little bit? I mean, you know, the first few years when we saw the changes made with 3 different lotteries, I think it was to obviously prevent deliberate tanking. But since that time, like, we've seen teams that were middling bubble teams, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Dallas Stars, and now placeholder E, who everyone here bet on to win number 1. Like, all these teams are jumping up with such minuscule odds into the top 3. Does the NHL need to have a conversation about fixing or changing the lottery system a little bit, or at least maybe having less teams be qualified to jump up in the lottery?
Yeah, I think the latter part of what you just said there, definitely having less teams, because, okay, like, let's look at the draft lottery at its core. the reason they implemented it is to stop teams from tanking. Can you guys think of a season where a team hasn't tanked, or at least 3 teams haven't tanked? Because I can't. Teams are still doing it. They're doing it right in front of the NHL's eyes. I mean, if the NHL is sitting there in their offices, wherever those are, and they're saying, yes, our league is fixed. We've implemented the draft lottery. Nobody's tanking. This is perfect. No, people are still tanking. So your system obviously isn't working. One proposition I've seen from Thomas Drance of The Athletic, he's talking about giving the Stanley Cup winner the first overall pick. I might be misquoting him there, but he's talking about giving an incentive to win. And if that's what you want to do, like, if you want high draft selection, you have to win. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a unique idea that Drance brings forth. I might be misquoting him on that. He'll text me if I am. I'm sure he'll get mad at me if I'm misquoting him, but I'll say that I might be misquoting him. But, you know, let's talk about that. For example, giving the Stanley Cup winner the first overall pick. Everybody's going to be trying to win the Stanley Cup at all times. And I mean, that includes all the basement teams. And I think you see some different strategies from teams. I don't know, like, I'm not totally on board with that method yet, but I think it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation to have for sure.
Oh, don't worry. The Pittsburgh Penguins will find a way to get Lafreniere. Don't worry.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're going to take ourselves a short break before we jump into the F word. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and a full press coverage network.
He liked to say the F word.
Well, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't. You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
So we thought we'd kick the F word off, and to give you some context here, David, the F word was normally where Adam, one of our co-hosts, would just go off the rails, completely flip tables, because that's how angry he was. Hence the F word, play on his middle initial. It hasn't happened in a while, and I'm not expecting for you to go and flip tables or anything like that, although if you do, it just, adds to the entertainment quotient. But I thought it would be an opportunity to talk about a name that has come up over and over again over the past few seasons, and that is Olli Juolevi. I understand that CanucksArmy has done quite a bit of work looking into really the enigma that is Olli Juolevi, and I thought maybe there was an opportunity for you to actually share with our listeners some of what it is you know. Like, is this a guy that's ever going to find time with the Vancouver Canucks?
Here's what I'll say. I think a lot of the people that are going on Twitter saying, oh, don't sleep on Olli Juolevi, or, oh, don't forget about Olli Juolevi, he could be great. Sure, he could be, but I will say that I don't think those people have watched Olli Juolevi play. I have, not nearly as much as Chris Faber, so I can't take all the credit. A lot of the knowledge that I have about Olli Juolevi comes from Chris and Chris's work that I edit. He has watched countless hours of game tape on Olli Juolevi, which is not fun, by the way. I don't know if you guys have ever watched a full Utica Comets game, but keep your eye on Olli Juolevi. It's not very fun. He doesn't do much, but he does some little things correctly, and that's what Chris was looking for in that article. So, okay, here's the book on Olli Juolevi according to Chris, which is where my information comes from regarding Juolevi. He's a good skater. He needs to work on some stuff when it comes to his skating, but he has a good hockey IQ, and that doesn't just pertain to the offensive zone. It pertains to cutting off angles, cutting down passing lanes. He is pretty good defensively, and he gets beat on some one-on-ones and some two-on-ones, which, isn't great, but you look at what he was drafted to be, and he's not going to be that. He was drafted to be a top pair defenseman. Any guy who goes in the top 5 is drafted to be a top pairing defenseman, and there is no way that Olli Juolevi is going to be a top pairing defenseman. So, when people say, oh, he's not a bust, no, he is a bust, because if you drafted Matthew Tkachuk, you're not even having this conversation. And I mean, it sucks because you want to see Juolevi succeed, and you feel bad for the guy with all those injuries. Like, I think that's the main thing for him, is just staying healthy. He can't stay healthy, and it really hurts him, because you see him at training camp, and he's having trouble with his knee, can't do some of the stretches. Well, there's a big red flag. And then 2 months later, he goes down with an injury, which I think was unrelated to the knee. Maybe I think it was his other knee or something like that. But the guy can't catch a break. And I think for him to develop properly, and I mean, it's been 4 years now, for him to develop properly, he's got to catch a break sooner or later, doesn't he? Like, I don't know. I think the guy just needs to play a full season to see what he can really do. But, you know, he's not going to come in and be a game changer. Like, he's not going to be Quinn Hughes. He's not going to be anything near that. At best, he could play in your top 4 on the second pairing, third pairing. That's where I see Juolevi. And, you know, that's not even a knock on him. He was killing penalties in Utica. He was doing everything in Utica, and he was playing pretty well. And I mean, we just talked to Sami Salo last weekend, and he likes what he's seen from Juolevi. And Juolevi might get to go work in Finland with Salo again. We brought that up to Sami, and he said, yeah, like, we've been getting a lot of calls about players unsure if the AHL is going to have a season. That's why Reed Boucher packed up and went to the KHL before everybody else did. He went fast because it's not looking good for the AHL or the East Coast League to return. Excuse me. Next season, it's not looking good. So, I mean, does Juolevi go back to Finland, learn some more stuff from Salo now that he's healthy? I mean, it'd be great, I think, for his development. And we asked Sami if he thinks for Juolevi going to Finland would be a step backwards in his development from getting ready for the North American game. And I mean, Sami said no. He might be a little biased because he's the assistant coach of TPS, but I think it'd be fine for Juolevi's development to go work with Sami a little more. You know, there's a guy who's dealt with injuries, and we asked him what advice he gives to players like Juolevi for dealing with injuries. And Sami said he changed the way he played a bit, and he had to get smarter. He couldn't run around and go hard into corners and throw his shoulder around at guys. Like, he had to play smart and pick his spots to do that stuff. So, I mean, Juolevi wasn't shying away from contact, but, you know, he's got to play a full season healthy to see what he really is. But again, like, I asked Chris, what's Juolevi going to be? And Chris isn't too high on him. There's positives and there's negatives.
Yeah, from what I had gleaned from Chris's 2-part series on Juolevi, the bad was that, the processing game in his defensive zone, a little bit slow. I mean, this is a league where you get a little bit of time to make a play, and you get even less in the NHL when you're facing a lot more pressure. So that is a challenge for Juolevi whenever he does get an NHL action. But of the good things, it's like the penalty kill was good. He makes some really good, strong passes as well out of the zone. So there is still some hope that he can play in your top 4 as well. Let me ask you this, though, David. Has Brogan Rafferty clearly and quite decisively leaped above Olli Juolevi on the depth chart?
Yeah, he has. And I mean, talking to Brogan, he did inform Chris and I that he played the left side all throughout his college career. Very lesser known fact because he's a right-handed shot. Played on the right side in Utica. We asked him, hey, Brogan, can you play on the left side? Because when I look at a 7th defenseman, and I think that's what he's going to be gunning for, 7th bottom pairing, basically he's going to try and be better than Jordy Ben, which I think he is. I look for a guy, can he play both sides? Because Jordy Ben can. Fettenberg, not really, but you know what I mean. It's a good quality to have in a 7th defenseman. And the fact that Rafferty can bring that to the table, I think he certainly has passed Juolevi. I think he's going to be on this team next year. I think there was a case for him to be on the team out of camp this year. I think he had a really strong showing in camp. I think he had a really strong showing at the end of the 2018-19 season when he came after being a college free agent. Those 2 games he played, I thought he fared very well, and he played with Quinn Hughes for a bit. So, I mean, putting him on a bottom pairing, is that a step up over Jordy Ben or Oscar Fettenberg? I say it is.
Yeah,
I mean, bar again, but whatever.
yeah.
He can play both sides, but can he play forward? Because Biega can do that, and that's an essential 7th defenseman.
Yeah, what couldn't Biega do? Like, I know we never got to see him suit up in the crease, but I kind of feel that he probably would have thrown on the pads.
If you asked him to, 100% he would have.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they wouldn't have had to bring that emergency goaltender who happens to be sitting somewhere in the barn as like the designated, I'm going to beat the Leafs goaltender. Biega would have done it.
Yep.
Biega couldn't go to 3 inches to be 6'3", though, either, so.
No, true. But hey, you know what?
But is he tall like Tyler Myers is the question.
Outside of sort of Juolevi, let's talk a little bit about some of the younger players, prospect players, but the Black Aces that we're going to see sort of here in Vancouver. Is there a possibility that we see any of them suit up for the Vancouver Canucks? And I want to qualify that by saying we still don't know what the impact of the pandemic will have. I mean, if a player were to, for instance, test positive, the presumption is they get pulled out of the roster for however period of time. And I would presume eventually a Black Ace might suit up. Whether or not they see any ice time is another question. So let's hypothetically suggest that that opportunity is now presented itself to the Vancouver Canucks. Who up there do you think, would be first to find ice time?
Well, global pandemic aside, I think it's very likely that we see, well, I guess it has to do with the global pandemic, but I think it's very likely we see more than one Black Ace in this. And I'll tell you why. I think being away from the ice for so long, you're going to see some pulled muscles. You're going to see pulled groins, guys having to miss 1 or 2 games, not long-term injuries, but injuries nonetheless, and they need to be replaced. You're going to see that. I'm very confident that we're going to see some Black Aces, probably more than one. I think if you're looking at the forward group, the first guy to slot in is Sven Berchi. He's got that NHL experience. The Canucks are comfortable having him in a top 6 if absolutely needed. You take him on a third line with Adam Gaudette, who he showed chemistry with in the preseason. You take that 100%. And I mean, defense, it becomes a little trickier because they're not really as well stocked in the defensive end. I mean, obviously Brogan Rafferty is going to be the first guy in, but I wonder. I know Chris was pretty pissed that Cole Lynn's not on that Black Aces list. I think he should be as well. He was excited the last time we talked to him. He was really excited to get going. And I mean, that's not great for his development to not be there, but you understand why the team would want some more defensemen than forwards.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point there, because hockey is just so strenuous on the body. The Premier League's come back, the Bundesliga's come back, and I don't think that's as strenuous, and their injuries have more than doubled.
Well, and the leagues themselves have increased the number of substitutions from 3 to 5. In fact, was it City or United, this past weekend, used all 5?
Yep. Arsenal had to do that also.
It was Arsenal, okay.
I know, I think you're right on that as well, but yeah, and they added water breaks, and so I think we really can't know what effect it's going to have on these players until we get there, and game speed is going to be so different to any skating they've done in preparation. Even training camp's just going to be, some good preparation, but we won't really know until the play-in series starts just how tough it's going to be on their body. So I'm sure we will see someone. Canucks injuries, Canucks weaknesses are on the back end, so we'll see.
Just thinking about this a little bit further, though, I mean, playoff hockey, essentially the hockey culture demands that during the playoffs you play through injuries. This is obviously an entirely different time, but I'm going to also presume players won't necessarily want to be pulled out. So okay, at what point does a team then step in? I'll use Ryan Kessler in 2011, put the Vancouver Canucks on his back until, unfortunately, he could no longer do that because his body just could not, handle that load based on everything that he left in that Nashville series. There was no way in hell that Kessler was ever going to take himself out of the game. I get that then the play-ins, maybe a little bit different, but it's still playoff atmosphere, playoff hockey. I can't imagine a player, I got a groin pull me out. They'll be like, ice me up, let's put me in. So it's just a tough spot. I'm not knocking the team or the players of the NHL in this regard. It's just, thinking this through, I actually think the only reason that a player gets pulled is a serious injury or the fact that they test positive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But again, I think just with the fact that they've been off for so long, if it's a minor injury, I'm thinking that they're going to be, if I sit out one game, I'll be good. I'll be okay if I sit out one game, but I can make this worse if I keep playing. And I mean, I hope players are going to keep that in mind. But again, you bring up an excellent point with Kessler as an example of the precedent. That's not what hockey culture is about. And I mean, there's a reason that these players have to get tested every day or so for COVID, because nobody's going to let them play through that as they shouldn't. So, I mean, it's good that they're doing that. But again, I think these Black Aces are going to be more important to the team than they have in past years.
Yeah, I'm pretty skeptical about players being smart. I'm just saying.
Before we get to the break, David, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at other teams as Black Aces groups. If you look at the Canucks Black Ace group and acknowledging that you think that the Black Aces could play a role in these play-in series, how do you size up the Canucks Black Aces compared to what you've seen from other teams? Is it good? Is it great? Is it kind of whatever?
I have no idea. I have not looked at other teams' Black Aces list.
Yeah.
I don't care that much.
So we're going to take ourselves another quick break here and dive on into Half Full Half Empty. We're joined here by David Quadrelli. You know him as the managing editor at CanucksArmy.com, as well as a host on Canucks Conversation. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
I'm going to go off script here. It's what we and I like to call off the rails.
Every time.
Matt hates this.
Yeah, Anna and I find that people enjoy off-the-rails content. Matt, however, drives them just nutty, which is the unfortunate part of the relationship here. But I skipped over something on the introduction that I actually want to go back to, and that's to learn more about you, David. Because to our listeners, I would imagine most of them have actually either read content you've provided, they've listened to you on Canucks Conversation, but there might be a few that don't. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to introduce yourself to them.
Okay, I changed my mind. This is good.
What? No better way than asking you, what is the best nickname you've ever had?
Oh, man. Okay, so my baseball coach came up with the Blizzard because my initials are DQ. So he called me the Blizzard when I was on the mound. I like to say it was because my curveball froze people, but I think it might have been because I froze up when a curveball would come at me and break into the strike zone. So
That's
I think
good.
that might have been a backhanded nickname, but I'll take it. It was a cool nickname for sure. I love that one. Quads is the main one. And then, yeah, like I used to go to this summer camp and everybody would call me Quadrelli. They would just go by my last name. And somebody called me David. And I found out like a lot of the people at that camp didn't know my first name was David. They thought my name was Quadrelli. Like that was my first name. And that was just a weird name my parents gave me. So that confused a lot of people. But yeah, like people really like my last name. And yeah, it's provided some good nicknames over the years.
Well, you'll be forever known as the Blizzard with us.
Yeah, I love that.
Have you been getting the hockey quad as well lately?
Oh man,
people call hockey. They call Godet Hockey God. So I figured they got to be calling you Hockey Quad.
I have not heard that one yet, but that could be a podcast name when I inevitably leave Chris from Canucks Conversation. It'll have to be the Hockey Quadcast or something like that.
Oh,
whoa, wait, okay. I just want to point out we already got 4 like. There is a trademark somewhere that C4 owns on number 4 and everything to do with it. What actually got you into writing? And I mean, I use writing loosely. I mean, let's talk about writing, podcasting.
Yeah. Chris Faber. So it's funny that we're working together now because I had 156 followers on Twitter. Chris was one of them. After interacting with him a little bit at the start of the 2018-19 season. I was a disgruntled English student at Simon Fraser University, studying to become a teacher. English was my passion, always loved writing. And I was reading stuff and I was like, man, I could do this. Like, I don't mean to sound cocky, but I was like, I could do this better than these people. So I messaged Chris and I said, hey, I know you're writing it the Canuck way. Is there any way I could get started on this? Do you know how I could break in? He's like, oh yeah, I'll get you set up. So he like talked to the site editor at that site, Alex Hogler, who got me on board. I worked there for 2 months, just contributing as much as I could. And then the position of site editor opened up at that site, co-site editor alongside Alex. I applied for it and they reluctantly gave me the job. And then I guess the rest is history because I held that position for almost a year before leaving for better things. I went for Canucks Conversation, CanucksArmy. I wasn't really planning on taking over as managing editor for Jackson. That kind of all, that's another story. But Chris is the one that got me started and everything. As much as I like to poke fun at him, I really do have to thank him for everything that I've been able to do for myself. Like, none of it would have been possible without Chris. And I mean, I think he'll say the same, because if he hadn't met me, then he wouldn't be pursuing radio at BCIT, because we're doing that together. And I don't know, I think it's crazy that we met on Twitter and somehow we've become such good friends. As much as I like to poke fun at him, I definitely have to thank him. He's a really good guy.
I think actually Faber mentioned the transition sort of into radio was having talked to you. I'm gonna take claim that C4 is what got Faber into podcasting, because he is actually one of our earlier listeners. I mean, we've been around so long that everyone else has listened to us at some point. But the other thing, and I mean, again, most of our listeners probably know this, but you had an opportunity to write as part of the Botchford project. How was that opportunity?
Oh, it was wonderful. And I mean, receiving that letter from Kat Botchford, I posted it on Twitter because I was at work and I could not believe it. And it was pretty funny because, I'm friends with him now, but I wasn't back then. Ryan Beach followed me on Twitter, and I was like, oh, this is good. This is a good thing. And then he messaged me and he's like, hey, just confirming you're going to school for journalism, right? I'm like, yes, I am. He's like, okay, perfect. I was like, am I going to hear good news in a week? And then he just didn't respond. And then sure enough, I got the letter from Kat saying I was the first selected, which was a truly humbling experience. And I think the most humbling thing was her saying that she saw a lot of similarities in the way I talked and the way I wrote, similarities in Jason, which is something I've heard before. And I mean, it's truly an honor to even be compared to him, or people saying they see some of him in what I do. I think that's so cool. And I mean, seeing her on that night, it was pretty funny because, it's no secret that Jason Botchford was my inspiration to begin writing. I guess I should have mentioned that. He was the one that made me think, okay, this is cool. Writing about the Vancouver Canucks is cool, and you can do it with an edge and you can do it with a flair to make it your own. And I was talking to Kat on that night, and I was telling her about how Jason was such an inspiration for me, and we had a really good chat in the press box. We didn't watch most of the second period of that game, if I'm being honest. We talked extensively, and I think the best advice she gave me, and I think it's the Botchford way. She said, at the end of the day, you are similar to Jason, so you need to take advantage of that. You can't try to be somebody you're not, and you can't try to emulate somebody else. You need to be yourself, and that's what's going to sell. It's gotten you this far, and if you just keep doing it, it's going to get you even further. And I think that was the moment where I was really okay, I can be myself. This is working. I just need to really drive it home and be myself on air, in my writing, and not change for anybody. And I mean, I've been criticized for being too positive. I've been criticized for being too negative. I don't know who I'm making happy here. Half the time I'm making everybody happy, and half the time I'm making everybody pissed. I'll take it. I mean, people are hopefully enjoying my stuff, but it's pretty funny. Chris and I always joke about how the positivity crew really likes me and the negativity crew really likes me most of the time. And then there's those few that are just this guy sucks, he's too positive, or this guy sucks, he's too negative. But really, it's just me. And I mean, I try to have a pretty positive outlook on life in general. So I mean, I don't know. It's just, I've tried to, from that Botchford project experience, I think the most valuable thing, obviously I got to write the article for Canucks.com, get experience talking to players, had lunch with Drance and Beecher, which was invaluable. The conversations and questions I was able to ask them there. I think the most valuable thing I got was Kat telling me to be myself. And, the whole thing was really humbling. And I think those words that Kat said to me on that day have always stuck with me. And I think they always will. And I still have my Botchford pin right here from the Church of Pedersen. They sent me this. I wore this on my Botchford project night. But yeah, it was a great experience, and I'm forever thankful for it.
That's
awesome. Thank you for sharing that
yeah,
story.
no, that's really great to hear. I think what Kat said to you is probably what Botch would say, be yourself. And it's so lovely that you get compared to Botch, and that I can definitely see that. But you're also David Quadrelli, and you're your own voice, and that's what Botch really did, was lift people up for being themselves. And yeah, I think you're definitely doing something right. So keep going.
And if you truly were trying to emulate Jason, then you would be on our podcast right now promising to get a tattoo on your ass if the Vancouver Canucks were to lose to the Edmonton Oilers, which, quite frankly, almost happened. And up going into the third period, Botch was actually tweeting at, "Oh my goodness, I have to get a tattoo. Anyone know of a good tattoo artist?"
It wasn't even a tattoo. It was a tattoo of Lucas Spiza.
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard this story. That's awesome.
So this game was a completely meaningless game. I think it was the season where the Canucks tanked for Pettersson, right? Chris, am I right or am I wrong here?
It might have been around there.
I think you're right.
Might have been
guaranteed a win.
It was like 2017. They needed a win. And it was like they were playing against the Oilers, who I believe didn't have McDavid, or he was injured at this point. And he was like, "There's no way they lose to the Edmonton Oilers. And if they lose to the Edmonton Oilers, I'll get Spiza tattooed on my ass." So there they are in the third period, deadlocked. They're going into a shootout with the lowly Edmonton Oilers, and his ass is probably literally sweating here. And I guess he had a lot of people reaching out to him on Twitter. I think it made the Provies that night. It was shortly before he jumped to the Athletic.
It was on Twitter. It was on the Provies. And I mean, the Botch-isode is what we had titled that episode. It sort of speaks to what Jason was always willing to do. I mean, I'm not going to say we were one of the first podcasts he joined, but like I'd be just DMing him, "Hey, Jason, can you join us?" "Yeah, no problem. When do you want to do this?" Like, he'd have the time of day for just about anyone. And I mean, this goes back to like the early days of social media. Like, I often talk about how I'm like a Canucks Twitter OG, only because I'm so old. I've been around long enough to make that claim. But I distinctly remember sitting up in the press box at an open practice, talking to actually the Canucks marketing side about some form of social thing. I think it was a live blog or whatever. Jason's just sitting down below in press row watching the practice. He's one of the few media members there. And all the other media members, they're like trying to stay well away from all of these social media people. Jason was just hanging out with us. He thought it was cool. And I never really understood sort of, why. And maybe even at that time, he may not have understood what he was doing, but it sort of speaks to volumes. He got it. He got it early. And he also identified one of the better ways to make sure, the profession were to succeed is to find, those who can sort of carry the torch, such as yourself. So, I just want you to know that sort of, me, who never had an interest in that world, respected what Jason did, but I also look forward to seeing the likes of you and others like Chris Faber, who are going to carry that torch, carry it proudly, and keep me entertained as a hockey fan moving forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's something I take seriously, and I try not to take myself too seriously, but I definitely take what I do seriously. And I mean, it's crazy that I'm getting into this profession now with the pandemic going on, and maybe it wasn't a great idea to leave school, but hey, I'm already here, so I got to keep going.
Yeah. Well, there's always a seat here to join us on C4 if things don't always work out. We pay absolutely nothing, and you have to put up with Matt, but Anna and I are pretty nice.
All right, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, but then if the pandemic finishes, you do have to record in the hot box, so
that's a trade-off.
So I guess we were going to talk some more Canucks, but we'll do some quick hitters instead, just to wrap things up here in the C4 podcast, Quads, if that's all right. So Joe McGinley, Marion Host said they headlined the 2020 Hockey Hall of Fame class. As a guy who grew up in Vancouver watching the Sedin twins, for you, when you look at the Sedins and you look at who else is also available to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, are the Sedins, in your mind, first ballot inductees next season?
Yeah, I think they're first ballot, and I think McGillney's joining them next season. That's what I'll say to that.
Nice. I can't say I disagree. Does McGillney go in as a Canuck?
Oh, no, I don't think he does.
He's going to go in as a Leaf, isn't he?
Oh, whatever. Imagine if McGillney were to actually go in as a Canuck. I mean,
that'd be so bizarre.
Like I was just graduating high school during that era, and I can't tell you how psyched I was going into, was it the 95 season?
Yep.
The Vancouver Canucks plus McGillney were a superstar roster, and then the wheels fell off the bandwagon, and we all catapulted off the edge of like a cliff. It was unbelievable how things turned so upside down. But yeah, the addition of McGillney, oh my God, I actually probably wasn't as excited until really the West Coast Express, and even then I'd say the 2010 Vancouver Canucks.
I'll let you know, Chris, that Quads I don't think was even born when McGillney was traded to the Canucks, by the way.
But that's why I can speak to it. Like, it was old. I am old. What can I say?
Well,
I've been
old.
around for 3 Vancouver Canucks Stanley Cup runs.
Oh, God.
I've yet to see a win.
And the last thing we'll ask you, David, Canucks Awards. You can now vote for your Canucks Awards on Canucks.com. There's the Unsung Hero, the MVP, Most Exciting Player, and Best Defenseman. I want to get your thoughts on who would be your nominees for that ballot. Unsung Hero, let's start with that.
Okay. Unsung Hero, I would love to say Josh Leivo, but he wasn't healthy the whole year, so I won't say him. But I think Josh Leivo is probably the most underrated player on this team. I've been on the Leivo train for a long time. I've been telling people that he's a lot better than everybody thinks. So I would say Josh Leivo, but I won't say Josh Leivo. So I will go with Adam Gaudette.
Okay. You want to give a quick one-liner why you chose Gaudette?
Yeah, I think he's a lot better than Brandon Sutter, and I think he really, if you're looking at a player who kind of didn't get a lot of fanfare, I think he put up like 33 or 36 points, and I mean everybody's on the Jake Virtanen train. So why isn't Gaudette getting that same respect? And people are talking about paying Jake Virtanen more than $3 million. I mean, why isn't Gaudette on that same train? He's a center. He creates plays. I don't know. I really like Adam Gaudette. I think he's going to be a great player. I think he's going to be a great third-line center for years to come. I think he was a bit of an unsung hero this year.
I think Unsung Hero is like one of the hardest awards to award in the Canuck market because Canucks Twitter talks about everyone and everyone has a take that's contrary. Yep. So, there's going to be like someone arguing during the year that, I don't know, Tyler Myers is the Canucks MVP. So everyone's a sung hero.
I think you could put Tyler Mott in that category too. I think he's pretty underrated. I mean, a lot of people talk about how underrated he is though. So then
that's the problem.
Unsung? I mean, also let's remember these awards don't matter. Marcus Granlund won it not too long ago. So let's just,
Yeah, they don't matter, but I do find the outrage hilarious. It's just like the fans voted for them, so it doesn't really matter. Just let the fans do what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of awards that don't matter, let's get to Most Exciting Player, award that has been won by Anson Carter and David Booth, I'll have you know. So let's go to who would be your most exciting player, David.
I think it's going to be Jacob Markstrom because of the highlight reel saves. Like, I don't know. Personally, I used to play goaltender anytime I would play hockey, and I think the goaltender is a very hard position to play. And I think, when you're making highlight reel saves, as Markstrom did so many nights, and stopping a flurry of shots as he did, I think that's pretty exciting.
I think it's pretty incredible that you would pick Markstrom, given that there are probably quite a few players on the Canucks that you could actually nominate and make a strong case for being the most exciting player. But I definitely don't disagree with you that Jacob Markstrom had his fair share of exciting moments this season. Best defenseman for you, is it a slam dunk for Quinn Hughes?
Yeah, it's not even close. I was seeing the video they posted today. There's a little too much Jordy Ben in there. I was a little confused by that. I was like, "Where's Fantenberg?" If we're putting
so
Ben
you're
in
telling
there,
me Oscar Fantenberg was not in the running?
Yeah, it was like I was like, "Why is Jordy Ben? Jordy Ben's playing air guitar with his stick in the locker room." It's like, why is this even in the video? Like, you could have just made this a Quinn Hughes highlight reel and put in like 1 or 2 hits from Myers and Edler and maybe Stetcher making a pass. I don't know. It's just like, it's obviously Quinn Hughes.
Did they have a clip of Fantenberg getting turnstiled by an Oiler or anything by any chance in that video?
That would have been great. That would have been absolutely phenomenal. Maybe it's because they didn't find any good Fantenberg clips to use.
They were probably let's just skip the Fantenberg highlight reel. And then the last award, David, your team nominee for MVP then.
Elias Pettersson, far and away.
I knew he was going to say this.
Outstanding, this player, and this was something that I had to get convinced on. I wasn't on the MVP Pettersson trade. It was funny. Chris and I did a debate. This guy's pulling out quotes of me from January. We went on Rob Fay Nation on 1040 in February, and we were asked what our MVPs were, and Chris and I were totally in agreement on it. And we had Elias Pettersson ranked 4th, and I mean that was just naive. Like, we were so wrong, and I mean I've definitely had my mind changed on it. And I hope what you've seen on CanucksArmy as of late can do the same for you. Andrew Harris did a phenomenal article on why he's a lot closer to the Hart. So not only is he closer to the league MVP, he's far and away the Canucks MVP. Like if you look at his wins above replacement in comparison to his teammates, it's really not even close.
Well, I won't go into my rant about the Hart Trophy again. You can listen to the old episode if you want that. But like, yeah, I'm still on the fence. And I could say I've listened to that debate between you and Faber, and I was so passionate that I was yelling at both of you. Like, I wanted to get in on the argument because I disagreed with both of you on some points and totally agreed with both of you on some points. So I don't have an answer to that question between Markstrom and Pedersen.
I'm telling you guys right now, Elias Pettersson is going to win a Hart Trophy one day.
Oh, 100%. It's not even a question.
Oh, man. It's award season, and Matt's just going to bring this up.
You can take this. It's not a hot take. I'm telling you, this guy is going to win a Hart Trophy one day.
I know, but you're going to tell us again, like next week, the week after that, the week after that.
I'm putting it in. I'm putting it on the board right now. I don't care what you guys say.
He's right. He's right.
Don't pump Matt's tires. It's the last thing we need. But here we are wrapping up an episode. And David, as we do with all of our guests, first of all, you are now considered friend of the show. That's all it takes is just to join us once and you're friend of the show until you talk, horrible about us, at which point you're dead to us like Clay Who. And, okay, I should not say Clay would never say anything bad about us.
But he is dead to us.
He is dead to us, yes. But anything that you want to share with all of our listeners, whether it's where they can find you, things that they can look forward to, hot takes that will want us to replace you or replace Matt with you?
I'm not sure if I can share. When's this episode going up?
Well, this will go live tomorrow, which to our listeners listening right now will be on Tuesday.
He's got a sneak peek behind what's coming up on CanucksArmy. I can see it in his eyes. He's got something cooking.
Do.
Exclusive.
It's on Canucks Conversation. We have a huge guest coming on this week. I can't say it. I'm sorry, I can't say it yet because we have a big announcement coming on Wednesday. But he is going to be a phenomenal guest, and we are very excited to talk to him. He's a very well-spoken individual. I'm not going to give any more hints, but I'm very, very
I was just starting to put together
him
guesses in my brain.
Yeah.
So how long have you had Kevin BX available? I'm sure that's who it is.
I wish. No, we've been working on him, and I guess I can share who else we've been working on. We had Sammy Salo, which was huge for us. We've had Rafi Torres lined up twice, actually once, and then he bailed, and then the second time he left us on red. So we're working on Rafi still. But yeah, like Brent Sopel's another guest that we've had, I think twice now. He's been phenomenal both times. Yeah, we're not really huge on getting guests. Like when I joined the show, we realized a lot of people wanted to hear what we had to say, instead of what our guests had to say. And I mean, Canucks Convo and some other podcasts out there are shows that are built on the guests, right? Like people weren't tuning in to hear what Chris had to say when he started Canucks Convo. And I mean, people liked what he had to say. So people were saying, hey, you got to talk more. But his show was interviewing people from Canucks Twitter, which was a unique idea. But at a certain point, it was a show that was built on the guests. And that's just not sustainable. So that's why he decided to bring me on. And now we kind of go off each other. And then recently, we've just had a string of where we're like, you know what, hockey's coming back. When hockey comes back, it's just going to be us probably. But you know what, let's do some vintage Canucks Convo. I can say, because I know he won't bail, we have Harman Dial coming on the show on Friday. Harman's a pretty good friend of mine. I'm very excited to have him on the show. I'm pretty excited for that. But we have another guest as well, who I can't say, unfortunately, but that's what people can look forward to for sure.
No, I totally get it. I mean, hence why we only just shared you were joining us as we were recording today, because no guest is bigger than you on any podcast here on the Canucks, Twittersphere, or as I often refer to it as the Smealosphere, the name that Harrison Mooney would love to go away. Awesome. Well, again, you can be found with all your writing at CanucksArmy.com. You're obviously the host with Chris Faber on Canucks Conversation podcast, which I know many of our listeners listen to, and you might have actually found a few more. You are going to be coming back at some point. Hopefully we haven't scared you off.
No, 100% I'm coming back.
Awesome. Keep in mind, we'll also want some crazier stories. And at some point in time, just realize if Matt's not here, we go full off the rails. Like, it's a fun episode.
Yeah, Matt's like...
It's not fun. We like process, right?
No,
Quads?
he used to work in radio,
Stick
so he
to the
likes
process. I worked in radio for a long time. You'll love the process. I would also like to mention, Quaz, when we were trying to get the dirt on you from Chris, he also wanted me to let you know that he whooped your ass on your own home golf course at Kensington Golf Course, Burnaby North, which, by the way, is my home golf course growing up as well. And he also wanted to begrudgingly admit that you were the nicest guy, though. Very confident in his abilities, but so damn nice. So we can definitely say that you lived up to that billing after this episode.
Wow, that's very nice. And I know he gave you guys some more dirt on me, which I'm glad you didn't bring up. But we're going to that golf course tomorrow. And I will say the first time we went, man, if you want a good story, let me just tell you the story about when we went golfing. It was a day we were going to go meet Thomas Drance to buy some equipment off him. Drance was doing the morning show with McCletch that day, and Drance didn't respond to our text. So we ended up in South Bend, and we're like, okay, let's go to Queen Elizabeth Pitch and Putt. We go there. There's a lineup to get on, and it's going to be about an hour. In the scorching heat, we were like, okay, forget this. We go home. Chris is from the island. He drives us basically everywhere downtown. I don't like driving downtown, so he was driving us through Vancouver back to Burnaby, and Chris had never experienced really this kind of traffic before.
Oh, so, he's mentioned the traffic to us before, too.
Yes. So we were driving home, and Chris had to go see his new girlfriend. I shouldn't say new, like he's had a bunch. Like, this is like a serious girlfriend that he has now, and I'm really happy for him. But he was going to go see her around 4 o'clock, okay? We leave Queen Elizabeth around 4. No, I think he was going to see her around 5 or 6, sorry. And he was like joking around with her, oh yeah, like no later than 6. We get to Kensington at about 5, and we go play around. There's a wait to get on. And I'm like, Chris, you want to just leave? He's like, no, we've come this far. Like, we didn't just drive around for 4 hours today for nothing. So we go and play. Sure enough, we get paired up with 2 random guys. And I think I played worse because we were with those guys. Nothing against those guys. It was just, I play better when I'm not, being watched. You know what I mean? So
yes,
exactly. So tomorrow will be a good one. One of my buddies is coming with us. So Faber has an excuse now because he doesn't know my buddy. So that'll be, I'm sure, what he pulls when I inevitably whoop him tomorrow.
I expect a full Twitter debrief as well, recapping the entire thing.
Series could be leveled at 1 tomorrow.
He's also a much better golfer than me, so keep that in mind. I'm kind of joking when I say I'm going to whoop him because I'm hoping to just not lose as badly as I did last time. I can't putt is my problem. Like, I'm really good at getting on the green. Like, I can get on the green in 1, maybe 2 shots, and then it's like a 3 putt, and I'm usually hitting, a 4 on a par 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, you just got to keep working on that game.
Yep.
Go pro like Grant Fuhr did after his hockey career. Thank you for joining us again. But as we look to wrap this episode off, Matt, any final words of wisdom you want to share?
No, just David, I think it was great to have you on. I know you're a young guy, but dude, you were so well spoken, and I know you're going through radio right now, and I think you're way ahead of the curve already. And I'm really excited to continue listening to the Canucks conversation with you and Chris. I think you guys have great on-air chemistry together, so keep it up. Keep booking those guests because they're must-listen material. And the Sammy Salo interview itself was probably your pièce de résistance so far. So it's must-listen content, and keep it up.
Yeah, I appreciate that, especially because I don't consider myself somebody who's really good at radio. I think, Chris is a much better talker than I am, and he's much better at podcasting. I've definitely learned a lot from just being on air with him. It's funny, we're going to be doing the top 20 or so moments in Canucks Convo history for episode 100, and we're definitely going to be pulling up my first appearance on the show, which isn't very good.
Well, it's got to be better than the one Canucks Convo episode that I was on, where Faber apologized while it was recording for my bad audio quality by tweet before it went live, in the show description, and on Twitter afterwards, which doesn't bode well for someone who has his own podcast. Anna, final words of wisdom from you.
No, that was just great to have you on. It's great to have a different voice. And yeah, you're a great one. Great future ahead of you. Keep going. I will say I don't really thank you for bringing up all the Olli Juolevi feels, because I just took a look at the 2016 draft again, and Jesus Christ, there are so many good players below him.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one.
I blame Chris.
Jost? Charlie McAvoy? Like, oh my god. Anyway.
Hindsight is 2020. I'm a Canucks fan. I've learned this far too often. Final words from me. As the others have already did, thank you for joining us, David. It's been a pleasure listening to you. You will be asked to come back on. Now, whether or not it's you or Chris, you're probably going to get the edge over Faber right now, because, again, we like you more. We did not force you to come to the hot box, and you hold that over him. But keep in mind, well, I mean, eventually, yeah, but then, technology, hot box, we don't want to ruin you guys.
Fair enough.
Got to balance this out. But hopefully, for those of you who are listening, you are a member of our C4 Discord. If you're not, go to discord.io/the C4podcast. You'll find an invite to join Discord. You can have all the conversation you want to have with us in Gate 16. It is what's been keeping the hockey flame burning. I know there are a lot of other Canucks podcasts out there. Not yours, David, not ours, but there are a few that are starting to fade. Gate 16 is what's keeping us alive. But also, you can find all of us on Twitter at the C4 Podcast, Facebook.com/the C4 Podcast, or pretty much the C4 Podcast in every podcast app. So on behalf of myself, Chris at Lightforce, Matt Lee at Matt_61, and of course, at A403, David Quadrelli, who is, as I already said many, many times, managing editor at CanucksArmy and host of the Canucks Conversation. You can find him at Quadrelli, and the Missing in Action, but here in spirit, Adam O'Neill Carter at Adam FOC. We're going to sign this magical episode off with those two words of "we out."